Good morning, everyone. It's Thomas, and it's time to talk a little bit about that women's intermittent fasting challenge. So, you may have seen yesterday, I posted up a quick community post simply because they were doing rotating power outages just due to the heat here in California. So, I figured it's better to do it this morning when I can actually have Wi-Fi and have a better setup. So, anyhow, the purpose of this video is I have a women's fasting challenge going on right now. You probably saw the video last week. If you did not, I put it in the first line of the description because that video has the full meal plan that has everything that you need. So if you're looking at doing this 30-day challenge, that's going to be the first place you need to go, just because that's got the full meal plan and everything that you need to get started. And then these broadcasts that are going to happen usually every Monday throughout the month are going to be to answer questions. So what we've done is we've compiled a list of questions out of the comment section from that first video. I'm going to go through those questions as best I can, and then I'm going to open it up to more questions here in the live comment section. So the purpose of this is to be able to have some live interaction, some live coaching, but also it's a good degree of accountability. So you've opened up that meal plan, you've started doing that, you've started following that, and now you just need some guidance and you need that accountability. And that's exactly why we're here. So not everyone's going to be watching this live, but that's totally okay. So I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope everyone had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in just because it's early. I want to get rocking and rolling and get you guys the information that you need. A common question that came up that I want to make sure I cover. People have said one comment in particular, I'm really interested, but I don't eat meat. Is there an alternative that you recommend for vegetarians? Very good question. Okay, on the vegetarian side, absolutely okay with eggs. Okay, that's absolutely fine. What I would usually recommend with eggs in this particular case is lean more towards the yolk and a little bit less towards the white, simply because the yolk is going to actually have the nutrients. So especially when we're fasting and we're trying to get more calories in, I shouldn't say calories, but nutrients during that eating window, you're going to get more out of the yolk than you are out of the white. I'm also, contrary to what a lot of people say, I'm not anti-dairy. If you just get really good quality dairy, I'm totally okay with you utilizing that. So that would be things like good quality Greek yogurt, good quality Icelandic yogurt, good quality Bulgarian yogurt, also very good quality cottage cheese. Okay, I'm okay with you getting your protein from that. Definitely okay with you getting your protein from like a pea protein or a hemp protein source. Okay, so very, very, very solid sources there. People asked a lot about hempa and tempeh and things like that. In moderation, I'm okay with that. I don't want you loading up on a bunch of soy, obviously. It's not exactly the goal, but if you need to get your protein in, I also understand that. So I would lean more towards hempe, which is made from hemp, versus tempeh, which is made from fermented soy. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Samantha had asked, I'd prefer not to start eating potatoes and pasta again as I feel so much better without them. Is it possible to do this challenge but stay keto? 100%. So remember, I laid this out to be opened up to everyone that likes to fast. And what I've noticed is my audience is about 50% keto, 50% not keto, but almost everyone likes to fast or implement a little bit of fasting. So by all means, you can stay keto on this. It's not going to change much except for the fact that you're going to be having days where you're not consuming carbohydrates. I mean, it's just plain and simple. So you absolutely can. The thing that I would stress the most is you might want to be getting a little bit more protein in that case, just to offset so you don't end up going overboard on the fats. I would lean more towards the protein than I would towards the fats in this particular case. Okay, and Surya asked, what about for older women? This sounds like it's a plan more for younger women. Actually, contrary to popular belief in terms of fasting in general, fasting as a rule is really, really solid for women that are over the age of even 65, 70. Okay, and why? Because again, it improves that insulin sensitivity that we're after. That can actually be very, very good for muscular development, could be very good for osteoporosis, very good. So people think that, okay, if you're fasting and you're restricting calories, that you're going to have this issue with overall nutrient absorption and nutrient delivery. It's actually quite the opposite. What you could do if you're concerned, if it feels too aggressive, you could cut the fasting down to just 3 days per week. Okay, you could go ahead and cut it down to where you're only fasting a couple days per week or 3 days per week. That way you're not having to be quite so aggressive with it, especially in that first week when we're doing a lot more. I know that's quite a bit. Actually, let me go ahead and stop for 1 second. I want to ask how people are doing so far. If anyone doing this challenge, Are you having good success so far? Have you already lost weight? It's been only a few days, and I know by the time people get their groceries and everything like that, sometimes it takes some time. But go ahead and comment and let me know if you've already had some success with this challenge since that first video went live. Yeah, there's already a lot of people that are saying they're started. This is great. Super good. I'm just waiting for a few people. This is my first day tomorrow. Great success. Already lost 2 pounds. Danielle already lost 5 pounds. Wow. Okay, this is really cool. We've already got some people that have lost some good amount of weight. Just looking at the comment section here, already lost 4 pounds. So the people that are starting this out already have already started with doing a little bit of the daily intermittent fasting. So again, just hopping on this broadcast, you're interested in the challenge, first link in the description is a video that gives the full meal plan and everything like that. I know YouTube makes it difficult to always see these videos. Wow, okay, already 6 pounds down, 4 pounds down. This is great. Okay, cool. Marjorie already lost 5 pounds. Okay, let's move on now back to the questions again. Okay, I run with scissors. It said, thanks, Thomas. Perfect timing for me. I was going to start fasting again. Is this regimen effective if we have experience with fasting already? Yes. Okay, so that's the whole point here, is that with this challenge, it is designed to either indoctrinate someone into a fasting lifestyle by starting with those shorter fasts, or B, periodize the fasting in such a way that it's going to change up what you're used to doing already. Okay, because again, I talk about frequently how fasting ends up being very easy to get into just a rhythm where you're consistently fasting all the time. The whole idea with this challenge, the way the meal plan was laid out, was so that you could actually get some structure back to your fasting and periodize it in such a way where we're getting slightly more aggressive. And if you aren't hopping over to that other video right now, that's fine. I can kind of recap. The idea behind this fasting challenge was to start out with daily fasting or close to it, and then progressively move into less frequent, but slightly longer fasts. Okay. Now, the idea behind that is that we're allowing the body to activate different processes with each different length fast. I have a video coming out tomorrow that specifically talks about the different lengths of fasts and what you're ultimately achieving. Okay, so with these shorter 14, 16-hour fasts, then we can really be getting ourselves actually just getting a different enzymatic effect than if, say, or next week we were to go slightly longer, we get a whole different set of effects. Okay, so gluconeogenesis. Anyway, don't need to get into a lot of details there with that. Okay, next question. Gina Duffy, if you're already intermittent fasting regular, should you start at the week 3 level and then work into alternate day fasting? That's a really good question. Answer is no. I would highly recommend. So basically what this person was suggesting was, if they already do intermittent fasting, should they skip ahead to week 3, which has the alternate day fasting, and move into that immediately? Although I understand that that would make sense, I would still suggest sticking with the protocol, because I have it set up in such a way where it's going to, again, indoctrinate you into that process working better. Okay, so a 16-hour fast like we're doing in this particular first week, okay, you're getting a lot more of just a time-restricted feeding effect versus the, say, ketone effect, and say the overall what we call PPAR alpha activation and all that. That comes in later. Right now with these shorter term fasts, like 16-hour fasts daily, the idea is to allow your body to sort of adapt into that mode. So even if you're an experienced faster, eating what I've sort of prescribed in that plan and eating the style in which I prescribed and how to break your fast, I think that alone is going to break the pattern for you. So you'll have some success with that. Gonna hop over here again because we've got a lot more people. Hey guys, if you don't mind, please hit that thumbs up button. Please hit that like button. That helps get this video out there for those that are actually looking for it. And then also, please don't forget to comment where you're watching from. Don't forget all that stuff, because that's going to, again, help out the community piece here too. There's a link down below also for Thrive Market. You guys probably saw it in the first video, but this whole challenge is being brought to you by Thrive Market. So they're providing a lot of the pantry staples, a lot of the groceries and things like that. So there's a link down below, right below in the description too, that takes you to Thrive Market so that you can get like your keto essentials, your fasting essentials. So definitely please do check them out after this video. Okay, they're a big supporter of this and they're helping make this challenge happen. Okay, then we've got some more people hopping on. Ladies, I listened to this guy, started last week, and I'm doing between 16 and 8-hour fasts, and it's working wonders. Good luck, girls. You've got this. Awesome. This is awesome. You got so much good motivation already in the room. Okay, then we've got the next question here. Is the fast dry during the 14 hours, or can I have black coffee or water? Yes, you can absolutely have water. Black coffee is up to you. You can also have tea. You can also utilize monk fruit. You can utilize stevia. No problem there at all. That's totally fine. Okay, we just want to avoid anything that's going to have really calories. Again, coffee, we could go down the rabbit hole talking about that. 3 to 5 calories in coffee, yes, definitely, but it's not going to kick you out of the fast. Okay, so in this case, if you want to have your coffee and you want to add a little bit of stevia or you want to add a little bit of monk fruit, I'm totally okay with that. So the fasting period during this, with any of the fasts, whether you're progressing through week 1, 2, 3, or 4, you are absolutely allowed to have coffee and definitely allowed to have water. Next question says, hi, Thomas, thanks for putting this together and all the detailed information that you support your thoughts with. I do have a challenge though, vegetarian who does only eat eggs. What are the protein options for us who would go with the meal plan? Now, I did cover this already, but the reason that I brought it up again is just because it brought up the eggs thing. So I kind of wanted to think a little bit more on it too. As far as eggs are concerned, the only time that I would not recommend having eggs is right when you're breaking your fast. Okay, I talk about that in many videos and things like that, where again, saturated fat, although good in essence, is not good right when we break a fast. Okay. What ends up happening is you have a lot of enzyme force that is reduced during a fast. So simply put, that means that when you're fasting, your body is prioritizing other things. So it stops making digestive enzymes or slows down the production of digestive enzymes. Why would it bother making digestive enzymes if it's not really needing them for food consumption to break it down? Okay, well, what ends up happening is then when you do eat, you usually have less digestive enzymes, which makes it really tough to break down food. Saturated fats require specific enzymes, and they require more of those enzymes because the fats, the carbon chains are saturated, okay? They're saturated with hydrogen bonds, so they basically don't break down very easily. So you need a lot of enzyme force to break them down. So what ends up happening is you're left with a lot of saturated fat that's not breaking down properly, and it causes stress to the epithelial cells. So it causes stress to the gut cells, which therefore can allow what are called lipopolysaccharides to leach into the bloodstream, which can make it a more inflammatory fast breaking. Okay. Now, when you're fasting, a lot of the goal that we're after is keeping inflammation nice and low. Okay. But then when you break your fast, naturally you have a spike in inflammation because as soon as you eat anything, you're going to have a spike in inflammation. Okay. But at the end of a fast, you're hypersensitive. And it's okay to have that little spike in inflammation, but we want to control it to some degree because the last thing that you want is to be nice and low in terms of your inflammatory response and then have it spike up dramatically. So we just want to be careful with that. Okay, and this next person said, I'm fasting for 20 hours a day. Is it necessary to eat all my calories in the last 4 hours? I know you don't believe in daily caloric needs, but I wanted a clarification. That's a really good question. Okay, so if you're already fasting 20 hours a day, well, the first thing that I have to say is, okay, if you're fasting 20 hours daily, then whatever you're eating in your 4-hour window is your daily caloric need because you're fasting daily. So if that makes sense. So what this person is suggesting is they fast 20 hours a day, which, by the way, I feel like doing that daily is too much. But if I take this literally with what it says, then that implies that you're only eating during that 4-hour window, which doesn't give you a lot of time to get many calories in. So in essence, that is your daily caloric intake. You're just not able to get that much. So what's going to happen there is if your body is used to eating in a 4-hour window every day, although from theoretically it sounds good because it'd be good for your mitochondria and stuff like that, your body just adapts to that. Okay, so you're never really activating the AMPK pathways as much as you would if you were not adjusted to that. So point is what you should do is maybe take some other days where you're not doing 20-hour fasts and be in a slight caloric surplus. Again, sound like a broken record when I say this, but look at your caloric needs over the course of a week versus over the course of the day. So if you're fasting for 20 hours and you have a 4-hour eating window, then that would imply that you're probably only going to be able to stuff, I don't know, let's just hypothetically say 1,000 calories in that 4-hour window. Okay, well then the next day, if you're not fasting, maybe you need to get an excess 1,000 calories that you wouldn't get otherwise. So that netting out at the end of the week, you're where you want to be. Because otherwise you're just going to keep shrinking that, and you're going to be left with very, very, very little caloric intake. That's just going to slow your metabolism, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but not exactly what we're after in the short term. Okay, and then Oh, this is a good one. Next question was, what would your recommended wake up time and bedtime be for this? I know everyone's schedule is different, but forget about that and just go off of my recommendations. Okay, well, there's a lot of different pieces that I could talk about in terms of circadian rhythm and when you're going to get the best hormonal response and everything like that. But I base this off of kind of a general bedtime of, trying to get to bed about 9 o'clock, which I seem to see is about average. Most people with kids and everything like that, they try to get kids in bed, they have a little bit of downtime, and then they try to get their bedtime routine going between 9 and 10. So I would say, between 9 and 10 bedtime would be perfect. Later than 10, you're going to start disrupting some things, but try to get to bed between 9 and 10. And then, of course, an ideal wake up time, I would say, would be probably about 6 o'clock, maybe even a little bit earlier if you're that kind of person. That way you can get up, you can get the workouts going. And I know I have it stated in here that a morning workout is going to be the best. And I sincerely believe that to be the case, but I know that not everyone can do that. I think I mentioned it in that introductory video, like what you could do alternatively. But I'll say it again, in terms of timing your workouts, if you cannot work out first thing in the morning, another time that you could work out would be either A, right before you break your fast, or B, towards the end of the day, in as close to a fasted state as possible. So here's what I mean by that. Let's say it's not a fasting day, or let's say even it is a fasting day, but you just absolutely can't work out until the evening time. It happens, I understand. So you want to get the benefits of working out in a fasted state, but you're working out later in the day. How are you going to achieve this? Well, some days you could, okay, but I don't expect you to fast until evening time every day just to accommodate a workout. That's just not realistic, and that's probably not mentally healthy. But what you could do is you could eat your food and then try to go as long as you can between that meal and your workout, so you're in as close to a fasted state as possible. So let's just, again, hypothetically say you break your fast at 1 p.m. and then you work out at 5 p.m. Well, I would say, eat your food, eat your meal at 1, maybe your second meal too at 1:30 or whatever, and then don't eat again until after your workout. And the reason I say that is because we're trying to get as much as you possibly can out of that workout. We're trying to get you as close to a fasted state as we can be, understanding that you're probably not in a fasted state. There's kind of 2 or 3 reasons we want to work out in not just a fasted state, but also just an empty stomach. Okay, so even if you're not fasted and you're not activating all the different pathways that are going to allow you to get more out of your workout, you still have a pretty solid benefit just from working out on an empty stomach. Okay, as soon as you eat something, you're putting a barrier between you and fat loss when it comes to your workout. Okay, you could make the argument that when you eat something, you're going to have more energy and therefore be able to work out more and blah, 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 blah. But you have to remember this, and I hope this sticks with you really, really clear. The net calories that you burn in a workout is really not that impressive, especially if you're weight training. So when you go into the gym and you work out, you're not burning that many calories in the gym. You're just not. Okay, you see these people talk about their 1,000-calorie workouts and things like that. Guys, first of all, if you're getting a 1,000-calorie workout in, that's awesome, but that's not sustainable. You're not going to do that every day. Your workouts are not burning as many calories as you think. They're just not. Okay, so forget about that piece for a minute and think about what you are triggering to happen within your body during a workout state. Okay, so if you were to eat some potatoes right before you went to the gym, your body's going to have to burn through those potatoes first before it really starts to tap into anything else. So sure, it could give you an extra 5% energy through your workout. I'd actually argue not. I feel better without food, but it's not getting you what you really need. Okay, so try to be as close to fasted or on as empty as a stomach as suitable for that day. Okay, next question here. Could you recommend keto-friendly substitutes for the starches and carbs, please? Well, I wouldn't really. So what they're referring to is within the plan, I have, it's not just a keto plan. It's set up for people that just want to intermittent fast without keto. And I understand that a lot of my audience is keto. So they're asking for specific replacements for the starches that are there. So what I would say, if you're replacing, let's just say potatoes in this particular case, you would want to replace it mainly with protein and a little bit of fat. And I would do this. Okay, so let's say we have, again, hypothetical simple math here. Let's say you have 5 ounces of potatoes. Okay, 5 ounces of red potatoes, which I think I talk about in that plan quite a bit. Okay, 5 ounces of red potatoes. You're not doing, you're doing keto, so you don't want to have those carbs. Well, What I would recommend replacing those with would be 80% protein, 20% fat. Okay, so what I would say is if you're normally doing 5 ounces of potatoes, maybe you go ahead and you do 3 ounces of extra meat, okay? And then the same amount of calories that would equate to 2 ounces of extra fat. So it doesn't mean, remember, fat has more calories. The point is extra protein and a little bit extra fat. You can mess around with the ratio a little bit. The nice thing about this plan is it's not about getting to a specific calorie number. It's about timing. The whole purpose of this plan is if we just reallocate certain meals at different times and play around with it and have the proper spacing between meals, you're going to have results, plain and simple. Now, that being said, after the workout, okay, I talk about how you can have some carbs after a workout if it's at the end of a fast. Even if you are doing keto, I tell you, you are okay to have like 20 grams of carbs after a workout. I talk about it all the time, okay? Sometimes I have as much as 40 or 50 grams of carbs after a workout, and guess what? I'm still in ketosis because I'm fat adapted, especially with the fasting protocol that we're implementing into this, where you're gonna start incrementally going into longer periods of fasting. I could almost promise you that you could have some carbs after your workout and not be kicked out of ketosis. It's not just this blanket one-size-fits-all approach with keto. Your body still utilizes carbs, so let's find a way to capitalize on when your body will actually utilize them better. So if you're doing this plan and you're following a ketogenic diet, I feel like this is an opportunity for you to test out how your body reacts to some carbs at a strategic time. Doesn't mean you have to stick with it, no, but it's a good opportunity to test. I would recommend that you test your ketones, you mess around with that because it will actually help you out. We've had a lot of people hop on here. So, hey, if you are just jumping onto this broadcast, please do make sure, wow, 107 pounds. I just opened up to that. 107 pound loss so far. Selenium, that is amazing. Make sure you comment where you're watching from, and also comment if you started this plan, if you started this protocol. Let me know how much weight you've lost already with this plan. Also making sure I mention again, the first video for this series is down below in the first line of the description. It links out to the YouTube video that breaks down the full meal plan. So I know a lot of people are hopping on here, don't know what the heck I'm talking about. Full meal plan that was posted last week with the whole challenge details. It's not too late to jump in, totally free challenge. Second line in the description is a link to Thrive Market. So that way you can get all the stuff that you need for this plan. So when it comes down to like the groceries, everything like that, highly, highly, highly recommend you check them out down below in the description. Okay, wow. This is awesome. This is a lot of people talking about how their amazing weight loss they've had outside of just this challenge. We've got 30 pounds lost since, since January, 50 pounds since last year, 32 pounds, 58 pounds. This is awesome. Tiffany Poyer asked a great question. She said, how long after working out is the optimal carb intake time? That's a tough one to answer because it varies widely. So how long should you wait after a workout to have carbohydrates? The carbohydrate piece is interesting because the carbohydrate piece you actually want to have within the first hour. Okay, but the protein you could actually have, believe it or not, up to like 2 or 3 hours after, even further. I'm talking about just that peak window. I have a video coming out on this later in this month because waiting that specific period of time is actually good. Your body is still in sort of that afterburn effect after a workout for a period of time. And the second that you eat, it slows that process down. So I'm a big fan of pushing that post-workout meal as far as I can before I get diminishing returns. So I usually wait at minimum a half an hour before I eat after a workout, usually closer to an hour, unless I just completely feel like I've depleted glycogen stores and done like a 1,000-calorie workout kind of thing where I feel like I just need to replenish because I don't want to go into some negative nitrogen balance. Some more questions here. Can I break my fast hard-boiled egg white? That's actually a good question. Normally, I wouldn't recommend breaking a fast with egg whites, but I also don't want to get so granular here that everyone loses motivation, right? So for the sake of this challenge, I'm okay with you breaking your fast with egg whites. I talked about not breaking your fast with egg yolks because the saturated fat is not good, but I understand if you're vegetarian, what do you want to break your fast with? Okay, you could break your fast with pea protein, with hemp protein, or you could use egg whites because there's not a lot of options otherwise if you're vegetarian and you're breaking your fast. So I totally get it. I think that's okay, especially as we get later into this challenge when we're not fasting daily and we're just fasting for longer fasts a couple times per week, then it's going to be a little bit more effective. Let's see here. So more questions coming through. I've got a whole list of questions I'm going to go through, but I'm also simultaneously covering some of these questions here. Can I drink 0-calorie drinks during the fast? I'd be okay with that. Yes, I'd be okay with things like Zevia. I'm even okay with the occasional diet soda. Not that I'm a fan of it. Okay, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Someone's going to take that clip and probably make a YouTube video about me. But I'm okay with it. It doesn't mean that I endorse it. I think that diet sodas are good, but I also understand that sometimes people just need a little bit of something to keep them going. I've been having cinnamon in coffee an hour before breaking fast. Honey York, that's a good question. That's a good clarification. Cinnamon before breaking your fast is really, really good because it does help mimic insulin within the body, which means that it can lower cortisol levels a little bit when you break your fast. So yes, that's totally okay. Let's see. Sorry. Can you take apple cider vinegar during this fasting challenge? Yes, you absolutely can. I would recommend definitely when you wake up. I would also recommend before you work out. And then I would recommend at any point when you start feeling like you're just getting a little bit possibly woozy. Sometimes it's easy when you're fasting and you're not adjusted to it for your body to kind of just get out of whack. Sometimes I find that apple cider vinegar helps control that a little bit. And what I mean by that is it helps modulate the blood sugar a little bit. So maybe the hypoglycemic effect is a little bit balanced out. Someone says, thank you. My endocrinologist was happy I'm doing intermittent fasting. That's awesome. Can I have mushroom broth on a fast? And you could use that broth right before you break your fast just to get your digestive juices flowing, but don't have it during your fast. Carolina says, is it okay to replace a meal with a plant-based protein shake after a 16-hour fast? Yes, it is in this case, especially that break fast meal where I actually suggest just having lean protein. So again, for those of you that are watching this video that don't know what I'm talking about, I posted a challenge video. Again, sorry to reiterate this again, but we have people coming and going. First line of the description takes you to that video. So after this live broadcast, you probably want to go watch that video because that breaks down everything. Could I break my fast with protein powder that has 5 grams of carbs? Good question. Depends where those carbs come from. Okay, like the Sun Warrior pea protein I usually use has a couple of grams of carbs, but it's usually coming from just various little plants that are in there and little bits of fiber, tiny, tiny, tiny amount. So yes, it's okay, but if it's coming from sugar, I would avoid it like the plague, just because you're going to be hypersensitive to it at that point in time. What supplements should I avoid on an empty stomach? Honestly, I would just not take any supplements during your fast if it makes life easier. It's just going to make it simpler that way. Can you get fat from fasting? That's interesting. Of course you can. If you eat a lot of food in your eating window, you can get fat from fasting. So I'm looking, okay, more questions popping up. Let me go back to my normal list of questions, and then I'm going to come back to the comment section here. Kelly Armstrong asked, what can those of us with seafood and shellfish allergies substitute for the, quote, fatty fish dinners in week 1 and the iodine-rich seaweed snacks you suggested? That's very, very good. So iodine, you could very easily, you can get that from non-fish sources very, very easily. You can get that from, a few different nuts. You can get that from, if you wanted to take some kind of like fulvic mineral or something like that, that's a great way to get iodine. I'm also not opposed to using iodized salt as far as iodine is concerned, if you're also balancing it out with a regular like good quality Himalayan salt too. Yeah, I just don't like the refined salt. And when people only use the refined salt, then you're depleting yourself of a lot of other minerals. So if you're not consuming the shellfish or the seafood, you could very, very easily swap that out with like a leaner poultry and then go ahead and add some fats to it. Now, again, you're not getting those same omega-3s, so I understand that's definitely going to be a little bit of an issue. What you could do is this is a little bit complex, but if you're really, really serious about it, it could help. Okay, you could take a little bit of flax. You could use flax oil, which is going to be what's called an alpha-linoleic acid, which is an omega-3. And if you consume that and you also have a little bit of turmeric, it does help the bioavailability of the ALA. I don't want to get crazy complicated because it just upsets people. People just used to like the science. Now it seems like people just get mad whenever I go down the rabbit hole. So I'm going to keep it really light. But basically, ALA, alpha-linoleic acid, is the omega-3 from flax and from chia and some things like that. But what happens is, because it's a land source of omega-3, it is not absorbed and utilized in the body the same way as fish sources of omega-3 are. What's interesting, though, is there's some interesting research over the last couple of years that show that when turmeric is combined with these land fat sources of omega-3, it increases the conversion. It increases the enzyme that allows the conversion into the usable form. So whenever you're using flax or chia for the purpose of omega-3, you would be wise to combine turmeric with it, because it's going to increase the bioavailability of what's called docosahexaenoic acid derived from that ALA, making it more utilized in the brain and better. Okay, so if you can't have the seafood and shellfish, I would recommend that because that's really the closest resemblance we can get to the fatty fish there. Rox Panetta says, I did fasting last year, successfully lost 10 kilograms. I stopped fasting since the start of quarantine and then gained them all back. What do I do? Rox, I think this is a perfect plan for you in that case. I think that the thing you have to remember is you probably shouldn't go right back to the same fasting protocol you did before. Your body's going to be pretty adjusted to that. I always recommend, the nice thing with fasting is it gives us a variety of different mechanisms, a variety of different options. Okay, you could do 16-hour fasts 5 days a week. You could do 22-hour fasts 2 days a week. You could do the monk fasting strategy, like I talked about in yesterday's video, a 36-hour fast where you go 1 day a week, right? All these things are effective. Switch it up. Okay, Boreana says, is this challenge okay for women with thyroid problems? I'm not a doctor. As I say in many of my videos, I'm just some dude on the internet, so I cannot comment on a diagnosed issue. The one thing we have to remember, I'm going to address the whole thyroid thing. When you are fasting, it is normal for your thyroid to slow down. Does that mean that your thyroid is permanently slowing down? No. If you were to eat a cookie, your thyroid would speed back up. So people seem to think that fasting is detrimental for the thyroid. First of all, there's two things to remember. The thyroid is going to slow down when calorie consumption goes down. There's no way around it. Okay, it's metabolism, period. Okay, if your thyroid slows down, that's actually good for longevity. As long as you are not slowing down your thyroid and then all of a sudden eating a crud ton of calories, okay, you are just like any diet. If you reduce your calories over time, your body's going to adjust to that. The moment that you start increasing a bunch of calories again, you're going to have a problem. The reason I like fasting is because you have this mentality of being able to have a strict lockdown on calories and then have a surplus. So your body is never really in this caloric deficit other than when it should be in a prescribed period of time. Okay. Now, the other thing that we have to remember when it comes down to the thyroid in general is that if you have a thyroid condition, everything can be flipped on its head. Okay, so people that are hyperthyroid can sometimes experience more hyperthyroidism and vice versa. So you really have to see how you feel and what's reacting with your body. Point is, at the end of the day, this fasting protocol would work. It's still going to be perfectly fine. It's just different timing. That's all it is. Todd D says, what are a couple examples of lean protein that you could swap out with this? Well, lean protein is going to be anything that doesn't have a high amount of natural fat on it. And it's not because I'm opposed to that as far as a food goes. I'm not demonizing it. I'm not saying that if you, big juicy ribeye is a bad piece of food. I just like to mess around with timing. I like to play around with how the body's going to utilize things at a certain time. The issue that I have with a meat that has a bunch of fat on it, especially when you're trying to get granular with what you're consuming, is if I were to take 2 ribeye steaks and one had, some good marbling of fat and another one had a bunch of marbling of fat, for all I know, if I grab a ribeye, I'm just thinking, 5 ounces of ribeye, 5 ounces of ribeye. Well, it turns out that one ribeye might have 40 grams of fat and another ribeye might have 20. That's a pretty big margin of error. So you understand, that's the reason why I like to add my fats separately, because I like to be able to maintain control. So if I go with a lean cut of meat, that margin of error is that much less. I'm much less likely to have, a 20-gram delta between 2 pieces of meat with filet mignon than I would with a ribeye. Okay, I might have a 4-gram of fat discrepancy between 2 different filet mignons, but I'm not going to have a 20 or 30 gram of fat discrepancy like I would with 2 ribeyes. So I hope that makes sense. People literally have cut me saying that out of videos and made other videos about me saying that I'm opposed to fatty cuts of meat. They've cut little chunks out. You have to listen to the full situation. I'm trying to give you what you need to be able to utilize these fats and utilize these proteins properly. The other advantage that we get with lean protein is that we can add the fats that we want to at a specific point in time. We're not at the mercy of the fat that is in that meat. Okay, so when it comes down to eating a certain meat, again, if I eat that ribeye, I am at the mercy of what that cow ate. If that cow is eating garbage, I'm consuming that through the fat. if I consume a lean cut of red meat and I decide at this point in time, I want omega-3s, or I want omega-9s, or I want palmitoleic acid, I could add some macadamia nut oil to the vegetables next to my steak, or I could drizzle some ghee on top of my steak. Point is, it gives me the control, which is exactly what I'm after in this. Okay, so someone says, currently eating a big juicy burger. This is good advice about the fats. Thank you, Thomas. You're welcome, Laura. Appreciate that. Can we skip the snacks from your meal plan? Janice, that's a tremendous question. Yes, you absolutely can skip the snacks. I put them in there because, again, I understand that people that are coming into this are going to not necessarily be adjusted to fasting. So I wanted to be able to give an option. Guys, can we please hit that thumbs up button? We really, really, really appreciate it. Just helps get this video out, again, to the people that are looking for this specific title. And then if you guys please can do me a solid after this broadcast, it really does help us out. At least check out Thrive Market down below in the description if you haven't already. There's a link that says thrivemarket.com/Thomas. Please just check them out. I promise you'll like them, and they've got everything you need for this challenge with the exception of the meat. Actually, they even do have that too. So please do check them out. And big thank you to them. Where is my meal plan? Just to reiterate again, live broadcasts are frustrating sometimes because I'll talk about something, but people come and go with them. So just so you know, if you're just hopping on this, the meal plan is in the first line of the description. It says the original meal plan video, and then there's a YouTube link. So you want to click on that. That'll take you to that after you watch this video, and you can watch the full meal plan and it'll break down what to do. And then just below that is the link to Thrive Market. Okay. Tim Ramsey says, is it okay to break my fast with Sun Warrior pea protein in unsweetened almond milk? Yes. So the nice thing about the almond milk, okay, is you're not going to have the same phytic acid issue that you would if you were just eating straight up almonds. So yes, I'm okay with that. An even better option would be coconut milk. So you mix your pea protein or anything like that with coconut milk, almond milk. Coconut milk is just a little bit less inflammatory. Again, nuts in general can be a little rough on people sometimes. You might feel that you hold some water. You might feel a little bit puffy. You just have to, use your own judgment there. Robert says, what should your exercise level be on longer fasts? I find that around hour 40, I start to get a little weak. Well, that's a little bit more extreme when you're starting to push it to, I shouldn't even say extreme, but when you're going 40 hours, okay, that's not something that people are doing regularly. I think you need to always sit at a rating of perceived exertion of between 7 and 8 for a decent workout. So what that means is if you are doing a workout in a fasted state, do not be data driven by what is on a treadmill or what is on the weight stack. The reason I say that is it could infuriate you. It could frustrate you. Remember, fasting is all about a hormetic stressor. So if I could illuminate it in such a way, it's like if I'm doing a 36-hour fast and I'm working out at the end of a fast, I might bench press 100 pounds less than I normally would. But does it matter? Because it's all relative. Okay, so the level of stress and pressure on my body is the same with that 100-pound less bench press than it is in a less fasted state. It's not all about how much weight you push. It's not all about how hard your workout is. It's about how hard your workout is, relatively speaking. That's all your body and your mind knows. Okay, so the same goes for when you're stressed out. The same goes for when you're sleep deprived. Okay, sometimes if you try to push for those numbers, you're just going to push injury. Your body has nice boundaries. Listen to it, okay? It's very, very helpful and reassuring to know that some days, as long as you're just pushing to where that same rating of perceived exertion is, you're going to be okay. Okay. In fact, there's a lot of argument that says if you're working in a fasted state and maybe you're not quite as strong because you're deep in a fast, you're getting the same metabolic effect with less weight stress load on your body. If I could get the same physical effect bench pressing 100 pounds that I could bench pressing 400, I would absolutely bench press 100 because it's less stress on my body. I don't need to push weight for ego's sake. The same thing goes with any kind of workout. So fasting, again, it's going to make it relative. So just remember that. Juliana says, Thomas, please tell me how you can reconcile fasting with the process of increasing your metabolism by consuming more calories after a long period of excessive cardio. Okay, well, I'll answer that first part because I think it's easier to answer that part. Basically, how do you reconcile your metabolism if you're trying to increase calories or you're trying to increase your metabolism, right? So basically what this person is talking about is they're trying to come out. I'm going to back up for a second. There's a lot of people watching this broadcast that have probably experienced this. they've potentially crashed their metabolism. So maybe you've crashed your metabolism in the sense where you have dieted so much that your metabolism is slow, but you want to be able to start fasting. Well, how do you reconcile the fact that you're trying to speed up your metabolism while also incorporating a fasting lifestyle? That's a very, very, very good question. And the truth of the matter is I've used fasting in many, many situations to be able to help people restore their metabolism via fasting. And the point with this is increasing your metabolism by increasing calories doesn't just happen over a 1 month period of eating a bunch of calories. It happens in periodic times, right? Again, the reference that I consistently use in almost every dietary pattern is it's like learning a language. If you go to another country and you immerse yourself, yes, it'll probably happen faster, but you can have an aggregate buildup if you go back and forth, right? If I go to Denmark 50 times over the next 6 months back and forth, I may not learn the language as fast as if I just stayed there for 6 months, but I'm still learning it a little bit. Fasting sort of gives you that with your metabolism. Think about it. You're fasting, so you still get the fat loss, and then you get a caloric surplus during your eating window for a short period of time. Then a deficit, and then a surplus. Deficit, surplus. So you're never really eating at that maintenance level. You're kind of always in a deficit and surplus. So you can tweak the surplus to be a little bit more aggressive and allow your metabolism to heat up. In fact, there's a solid argument that when you eat after breaking a fast, your body has to really upregulate processes really fast. It can also make your metabolism very, very hot, very fast, and it can allow you to be more metabolically flexible. So if you're someone that has a crashed metabolism, fasting could arguably be a good way to sort of correct that. You just don't want to fast every day. You'd want to fast every few days. This plan, again, this free challenge that I'm doing, is probably a good way to incubate yourself and start with that. Next question. First time I'm fasting more than 18 hours. I want to try to extend it to 36, and I'm thinking of having bone broth before going to bed. Would it break my fast? Bone broth would break your fast. Time that I would recommend having bone broth would be shortly, 15, 30 minutes before breaking your fast, even though technically it does break your fast. That's the best time to have it. If you have it in the middle of your fast, you'll find that you're going to get hungry because it's going to start the digestion process, but with very few calories. And your body's going to be like, what the heck is going on? So all of a sudden you brought a few calories in and the body just gets adapted to that. V Zimmer said, this is exactly what I want to do, yet my still ketone, but will my ketones show up on a okay, this is, gotcha. Regarding ketones, if you're going to be measuring ketones during this process, use a blood meter, not a urine strip, because the urine strip's not going to register your ketones. It's just not, because it measures excess ketones. Once you're in ketosis for a period of time, those ketones do not get registered on the urine strips anymore because you're not producing excess anymore. What kind of exercise should we do in the morning, whether it's before breaking a fast or not? I mentioned it in that introductory video, but what I would recommend is the kind of workout that you should do is going to be some resistance training and some light cardio. You can throw HIIT in there if you're ready for it, but I feel like resistance training is probably going to get you the best effect. If you're adjusted to high intensity interval training, you can throw that in, but I feel like resistance training and light cardio is going to be the best. Okay, now I'm going to pop it over to the comment section here. We've got about 10 minutes that I can do of standard Q&A, but I do need everyone to hit that like button, hit that thumbs up button, please. And then let's go ahead and let's answer some questions specific to this intermittent fasting challenge plan, okay? That would help out a lot if people could just kind of keep it on course with that. And again, if you haven't already checked out the video that has the full meal plan, first line of the description, super easy to find right below this video. In that first line of the description, it says the original fasting video here. And then directly underneath that is going to be Thrive Market, so you can get all the groceries and everything delivered for this if you want to utilize that. Stevia in black coffee is okay. When to time your meals if you work out twice a day. Do one fasted, one as close to fasted as possible, like 3-4 hours after a meal. Can you still follow this plan if you are insulin resistant? I'm careful to answer medical diagnosed issue questions, but more than likely it's going to improve that just given the situation, right? I'm doing an ACV regimen every day with intermittent fasting and switching to vegetarian, lost 50 pounds. How can I get rid of the stubborn belly fat? Again, I think by the time you get to week 3, week 4 of this plan, you're going to start to feel the body's really starting to tap into that a little bit more. Does collagen in coffee during this plan? I would not do that. That would definitely break the fast, okay? On the non-fasting days, you can definitely do that. Brittany says, thank you for doing this. Have you covered how to get the best out of your workout if you need to work out at 4 p.m.? I've been doing IF for a few months, 16 to 18 hours a day. Should I start at week 2? Brittany, I would still start at week 1 simply because it's going to adapt you a little bit better. It's going to get you into the zone. This is kind of set up to periodize a certain way. If you're working out at 4 p.m., as you see, as we get later into this challenge in weeks 3 and 4, you could actually work out in a fasted state at that point in time. Don't be afraid to shuffle the time periods. Don't be afraid to start your fast later or start your fast earlier to accommodate breaking it at a different time. We have this thought process that we need to start fasting after dinner and then just go through that way. You can start your fast after lunch the day prior if you want to, okay? Or you can start your fast in the morning if you want to. All that I care about is the number of hours that you're fasting, not which hours you are fasting through. Hope that helps. Does selenium, zinc, and magnesium break a fast? No, Jessica, they do not. Should I limit my fruit intake during the eating window? I would not consume more than 40 grams of carbohydrates from fruit. Okay, that's on the high end. So please try to keep it more like 20-ish. Eggs good in the morning. I'd be okay with eggs in the morning. Cindy, so the women's period has stopped. I don't know if it's you're probably talking in general because it's only been a few days since this plan. You may, if you're experiencing issues like that, you might want to take a little time off from fasting and just let your body restore. Just sometimes the reproductive system is maybe at a halt because it's in shock. I found apple cider vinegar capsules at Costco. Could I take these? You could. Just remember the gelatin capsules have gelatin on the outside, which technically have a couple of calories, but it's not going to be the same effect because you're not getting as much of an active acetic acid, but I'd be okay with it. I work out at 7 a.m. and don't have my first meal until 11. Is this okay or is it hindering my progress? No, I'm okay with that. I think that actually that 4-hour period is good as long as you're making sure you maybe increase protein content a tiny bit with that meal just to offset the fact that you are going 4 hours without eating. Or probably by the time you're done with your workout, it's probably only 3. Thomas, do we still need carbs and fructose with protein as you mentioned before? Julia, I would recommend that. You don't need to do that, by the way. Okay, so she's talking about how in some videos I reference having a few grams of carbs from starches, a few grams of carbs from fruit, and then your protein. What that does is that activates different pathways that the body can absorb glucose faster. Yes, after a fasted workout, you're going to utilize those carbohydrates better that way, but you absolutely don't have to. If you're already combining, potatoes with a little bit of fruit post-workout, yes, you can do that as long as, you're in your eating window. Don't do it because it's going to break fast, right? Is whey protein okay? Haven't found pea protein that it's allergy safe for me. Honey York, yes, that's a great question. Just make sure with any whey protein that you get, please, all ears, everybody, make sure it's whey protein isolate, not whey protein concentrate. Okay, whey protein isolate isolates the protein from the whey, so you're left with the pure protein versus the milk solids and other things. It's more expensive, but you're not getting the cruddy milk solids and stuff that's interfering with the utilization of the whey. I'd rather see you use whey protein isolate where it's just pure unadulterated protein for the most part. I usually have good luck with women's losing weight. They disappear from no, I appreciate everything you do. Thank you very much, Justine. I appreciate that. Is drinking ACV with mineral water and monk fruit at dinner okay? Yes, absolutely. That's a great little treat to have. What amount of protein would you recommend for hair loss? That's a tough question to answer because it's really black and white. Like once you're in a deficit or a negative nitrogen balance, all kinds of things can happen. You just want to put yourself in that positive nitrogen balance, which is hard to say where that number would be. I would definitely say increase protein. It's probably better to have a little extra protein than not enough. If you're having a lot of protein and you're trying to wonder if you have too much, if you start getting really stiff joints and you're older, that's usually a sign that you have a little bit of those purines that are converting into uric acid, which might not be good, but you'll feel it. Okay, if you're having too much protein, you usually start to feel stiff in the joints. Sorry, I got on late. Where do I go to do the 30-day? First link in the description has all access to that video. Is 22-hour fasting every day too much? Yes, absolutely is. I would definitely back that off. Again, if you follow the structure that I've laid out in this plan, it'll help. Does Omad slow your metabolism over time? Yes, it would. Does nutritional yeast break a fast? Nutritional yeast does break a fast, but it's actually a very good thing to have shortly after breaking a fast because you get a big variety of B vitamins that could help out with kind of that glucose utilization. So I haven't done a video talking about that because, again, if I get granular with everything that would be great to break a fast or everything that would be terrible to break a fast, you could imagine what people would say. They would hate me. But nutritional yeast is great to have along with a fast breaking strategy, just because of the plethora of B vitamins, which does help glucose metabolism, helps keep insulin process a little bit better, helps just that overall situation. What can I eat for sweets after dinner? I think I mentioned in that video, in the video, that the occasional fat snacks cookie or something like that, just that you have like something sweet, but you're not having a bunch of sugar, is okay. Again, I want you to have fun with this too. And so I would recommend something like that. Again, if you look at that video that's linked out, you'll see. Dawn says 8 p.m. Choco Moo substitute, please. So again, I talk about my Choco Moo where I have almond milk and I mix it with a little bit of stevia or monk fruit, a little bit of chocolate, like unsweetened cocoa powder, coconut cream, mix it up. Another thing that you could do, well, you could have like a small amount, like a couple ounces of unsweetened yogurt, and then go ahead and add a little bit of stevia to it and a couple chunks of like unsweetened baking chocolate, like just like the chunks, or perhaps maybe some like Chalk Zero chocolate chips or something like that. You're just getting a little bit of a treat. You don't have to do that, but the whole purpose of doing that is just to give you something to look forward to at the end of the day a little bit. Again, it's all laid out in that meal plan. Can I drink whiskey a bit? It's a good question. I really wouldn't recommend that you have alcohol during this plan, but if you are going to have alcohol, I would recommend not having it on your fasting days. Because remember, what's happening is the liver is sort of in overdrive after a fast, and I wouldn't want you to consume alcohol then. The reason is because when you consume that, it gets turned into something called acetaldehyde in your body, which is very toxic, as we know, okay? But what happens is the liver has to prioritize the metabolism of that. Now, that means that acetaldehyde or alcohol goes to the front of the line, which means other things take a back seat, which means that at the end of your fast, when your body's trying to restore sort of these detoxification effects with natural glutathione and everything like that, it's having to combat the alcohol instead. So if you are going to have a little bit of alcohol, have it on your non-fasting days. I'm afraid to gain weight after eating too many carbs and fat. I'm still very new to keto. Tanja, you could follow this whole plan that I'm talking about doing keto. So you don't have to have the carbs. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. I implemented carbs into this strategy because I know that more people that follow my channel than not do fasting without keto. You can absolutely take this plan and utilize, straight up keto. I almost forgot to, it makes sense to say it while I've got 800 people on here really quick. I'll put a link in the description to a Facebook group for those of you that use Facebook. And I have a team of coaches and everything in that Facebook group. And that allows you to be able to just post status updates and post things about your experience and everything like that. So I'm in that group too. So it's basically a little bit more of a community that you can post to. I know not everyone uses Facebook. I try not to bridge them too much because YouTube people and Facebook people are like, but I utilize both because it's a good way to effectively communicate. So I'll put a link in the description to the Facebook group after this video. That way, if you need more access just to helpful stuff and you just want to have more of a community, then yes, it's there. Is this only for women? Terrific question. No, the reason that I laid it out more for women is it slightly uses a strategy that might be better for women, but it absolutely 100% will still work for men. Do we need zinc supplements? What kind? If you're eating the food that I'm laying out in this plan, you shouldn't really need a zinc supplement. Okay, otherwise you don't need much, maybe 20 milligrams or so. Why does Omad slow your metabolism? Because you have two options with one meal a day, okay? You either eat a small enough meal with one meal a day that you don't trigger an inflammatory response that is detrimental, in which case it's pick your poison, okay? You either have an issue with Omad that comes from not consuming enough calories, okay? So I would argue that if you're eating a good, healthy, balanced meal, you're not going to get enough calories that you need for the day in one meal, okay? That is going to slow your metabolism. The argument that often comes to that is, well, I eat a lot of food with my one meal a day. Well, then we have a whole different set of problems. If you're going to eat 2,000, 2,500 calories in one meal, you have a whole different effect. Okay, you have something called a PKR effect, PKR enzyme. You have this whole process that is an autoimmune response or just an immune response to that many calories. There was an interesting study that showed that when you consume a ton of calories all at once, the metabolism actually shuts down and sort of fights back. in terms of an immune response. Okay, they studied this in mice through and through, and they saw that, interesting, this PKR effect, which is normally there to combat viruses, gets elevated when we consume too many calories all at once, because the body says, whoa, if there's this many nutrients coming in at once, there must be something wrong. So it triggers the immune system. So those are kind of your two options. You're either in a severe deficit where you're slowing down your metabolism, or you're triggering a massive inflammatory response. It's just also mentally, I don't feel like it's a good habit to get into one meal a day, because you do it every day and then you just eat one meal and you're basically turning yourself into this like binge-like mentality. One meal a day is effective to do a couple times per week. Sure, that's fine. Okay, but that's to put you in a deficit, not necessarily to try to make it a lifestyle. I'm much more a fan of 2 meals a day, splitting it into 2 meals and just being much better off. Is milk protein isolate okay? My other protein has this in whey protein concentrate. Small amounts, yes, but I would really go for whey protein isolate. How do you fast while cooking for a family throughout the day? It's so tempting when you're cooking for your toddler. I've actually found that fasting makes it easier when I'm cooking for the toddler, because I don't want to take a bite of peanut butter because I know I'm fasting. It's black and white. And then I just make it so that the dinners that we're having are all aligned with what I'm eating and what they're eating. And if I'm keto at that time, then maybe they'll have the potatoes or the pasta that I'm not having, but it's no big deal. Okay. One last question I'm going to answer because it's a really good one, then I got to hop off. Are exogenous ketones okay, or do they break a fast? I do like exogenous ketones, but I do not like them during a fast. Why? Because we're trying to get the body to produce its own ketones. So why would you put an exogenous form that's going to slow down your body's endogenous production of it? Okay, again, it's like we want our body to produce it. If we give it to our body artificially, it doesn't need to produce it. So during a fast, let yourself be in that fasted state. If you want to mess around with exogenous ketones, have them after your fast, and you'll find that you actually get to carry on a lot of the benefits of a fast. So I'm going to leave it at that. One more thing, everyone, please, 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 the original video is down below in the description. And then please, you guys would help me out a lot if you check out Thrive Market and try some of the keto stuff, try some of the fasting stuff, try some of the groceries that you need for this plan, any of the food, things like that, via Thrive Market. I don't think you'll be disappointed because it makes it super easy to not go to the grocery store. Anyhow, go ahead and check out that original video. I'll post the link to the Facebook group. And thank you everyone for being here. And I will see you with the next video.